Okay, kita na? Yes. Wait lang. Stop sa Zoom. Okay, class, let's start. Okay, use the chat box if you want to say something. And please keep your camera on and let's start.
Okay, so our topic for today is about developmental disturbances in the jaws, as well as the oral structures and the para-oral structures. So we will group them based on the structure that is involved. So let's talk first the jaw. So when we say jaw, okay, so it means napia. Now napia means jaw. And when we add a at the start, it means it's missing. So when you say anapia, then you have a missing jaw, right? But it's a very rare occurrence that baby is born without a complete jaw, complete maxilla or complete mandible. That's why even if it's just a part of the maxilla or the mandible is missing, then it is already considered as anapia. Like for example, if the premaxilla is absent, so the anterior part of the maxilla did not develop, then that is already considered as anapia. In the mandible, if one side is missing, or if one condyle is missing, or the entire ramus is missing, then that is already called anapia. Okay, there is a jaw, right? But it is smaller in size and did not develop to its full size. So literally, micronaphia literally means small jaw. Micronaphia. Okay, it may be congenital, so the baby is born with it already, and this is associated with babies born with congenital heart diseases and Pierre-Robin syndrome. Or it may be acquired, so the jaw, the baby is normal at birth, but because of infection or trauma to the growth sites or growth centers, then the jaw will not develop properly and would result into micronaphia, right? So it may be congenital. When baby is born with heart conditions, then it can also affect the growth and development of the child, would result into micronaphia and a syndrome known as Pierre-Robin syndrome. So let's talk of the Pierre-Robin syndrome. Okay. So when you hear the word or the name Pierre-Robin syndrome, or sometimes they call it as Pierre-Robin anomaly. Okay, so the three symptoms should be present, for a diagnosis of Pierre-Robin syndrome to be established. And what are the triad? Okay, number one, we said you have the micronaphia. So at birth pala, you have a small jaw, particularly of the mandible, between the maxilla and the mandible. So in Pierre-Robin, it's usually the mandible that is affected. Number two, there is a cleft palate. And number three, glossoptosis. So if these three are present, then at birth pa lang, then the child is given a Pierre-Robin syndrome diagnosis. Okay, what is the significance of this syndrome in dentistry? Okay, so when you say cleft palate, clefting, diba? There is a non-union of a tissue. And cleft can occur, okay, let's talk a little of the cleft. Okay, cleft is non-union. So during development, you have your tissues at first, no? They are separated from each other, and as it develops, grows, and they grow and come closer together and fuse, no? And you have your suture lines, right? And that can be happening on the soft tissue as well as the hard tissue, which is the bone. So clefting class is not only on the bone, but it can happen on the soft tissue as well as the bony tissue. Okay, so you have your cleft palate. Let's start first with the cleft lip. And this is not new to you because you encounter people with cleft. No? Okay, cleft lip can be unilateral, so meaning it affects only one side of the lip, or it can be bilateral. Okay, so let's take, for example, this is the lip, right? This is the nose. Then you can have your clefting on one side, it's non-union, or you can have two sides. And it is very rare that we see a midline cleft, which usually on the lower lip. So clefting is usually on the upper lip, either one side or two sides affected. Okay. Another cleft is your lip, cleft palate. Okay. So it can be isolated, meaning the lip is normal, but the palate is not. Okay. So if we have a palate here, right, and at the back, you should have your uvula, right? So if you open your mouth, you can see a soft tissue at the back, right, that is suspended, and that is your uvula. So if you have a bifid uvula, minsan ganyan siya, right? And that is the mildest form of cleft palate. Nagsara yung hard palate, nag-close yung hard palate, but the soft palate during development did not fuse and cleft with a bifid uvula. So that's the mildest form. Okay, you can have a hard palate, cleft hard palate, or you can have a cleft soft palate. Okay, or combination. Pwedeng meron lang dito sa hard palate, or meron lang soft palate, or you can have both. Right? So you have your uvula here, and you have your uvula here, together with the hard palate in the center. Okay. And the last one, class, is cleft nasoalveolar. So meaning alveolar bone is affected. It can be unilateral or it can be bilateral. So a cleft nasoalveolar is usually an extension also from a cleft hard palate. Asan yon? So you can have it here. So if that is the alveolar bone, you can have it unilateral or you can have bilateral, usually in the canine area. Okay? Here, or you can have the combination of the three, including the lip. Okay. So what's the significance of this in dentistry? So cleft palate would be, there is a communication within the oral cavity and the nasal cavity. Okay, so just like in our patient with the Pierre-Robin syndrome. So the difficulty here would be during feeding, diba? When the child or when the baby feeds, then the food, the milk goes into the nasal cavity kasi walang seal, and they are prone to aspiration, pulmonary aspiration during feeding. Right? When you say glossoptosis, class, it's the position of the tongue wherein it is elevated and retracted. It's because of the size of the mandible. Kasi kung normal size ang mandible, the tongue should be resting, no, on the floor of the mouth. But because the jaw is constricted, right, so the position of the tongue is also affected and producing your glossoptosis. So what's the significance of this? Breathing. Right? So the child would have difficulty of breathing because of the position of the tongue. Okay? But when the baby survives the first year of life with these difficulties, then the chances of survival is higher na. Pwede nang mag-normal yung quality of life ng patient. Okay, going back. So it can be congenital or it can be acquired. Diba? There are growth centers that we have, no? And one of this is the condyle. The condyle is very important in the growth and development, displacement of the mandible, no, during growth and development. So if a baby, again, at birth pa lang, so if the baby or if the mother have difficulty of giving birth, diba, sometimes it is assisted with forceps. Kasi if you've heard of forceps delivery, no, the baby is being grasped, no, in the mastoid area. Doon hinahawakan yung baby. So if the mastoid area with the temporomandibular joint area is affected by trauma, then the baby may not have a full development of the jaw, okay, producing mandibular micronatia. And we see also people with this, no? So if you look at the profile of the patient has deficient chin button, walang baba, no? And that is our mandibular micronatia. And if you do your cephalometric analysis, then if you measure the mandibular angle, then you will have a very stiff measurement. Okay, let's go to the opposite of this, which is macronatia. So the patient would produce or would present to us very large jaw. It can be the upper jaw or it can be the lower jaw. And this may be associated with Paget's disease of the bone, Paget's disease or otitis deformans. Okay, so what is the problem with this one? So in Paget's disease of bone, class, the patient would be complaining of progressive enlargement of the jaw. So how would the patient observe this one? So if the patient has dentition, may ngipin si patient, the patient would observe diastemas, no? Bakit nagkakaroon ng spacing in between the teeth? It's because the jaw is enlarging, but the teeth do not. So nag-spread yun. But if the patient is edentulous, and a denture wearer, denture siya, then the patient would be complaining of ill-fitting denture. Bakit? At first, no, the denture has a good fit, pero again, the jaw is enlarging, then eventually the denture will not fit anymore. Okay, what is acromegaly? Acromegaly, class, is a form of gigantism. Okay, so, but it is not proportional, wherein there are certain areas of the body as well as the face are enlarged and the others are normal. And this has been associated with an increased secretion of your growth hormones. And growth hormones are being secreted by the pituitary gland. So if the pituitary gland is overproduction of growth hormone associated with tumors, so kung may tumor sa area, and would produce your hyperpituitarism, right? So the result can be your acromegaly. No? Bakit? You want growth hormones, correct? When you are still growing. Diba? Kaya nga sabi, matulog ka ng maaga, matulog ka sa hapon, uminom ka ng gatas because you want to maximize the growth hormone on the child. But if we are already adults and we stop growing, no, the epiphyseal plates of the long bone has fused, and that's a sign that we stop growing, right? And we still have the overproduction of the growth hormones, and that would result into this enlargement of certain areas of the body, and that includes the mandible. It's usually the mandible. Okay, and the other one is the leontiasis osseosa, which is a form of fibrous tissue dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia, and it's usually the maxilla. Okay, so maxilla is usually affected by fibrous dysplasia, wherein the osseous part of the jaw is being replaced by fibrous tissue. So this is medyo asymmetrical. Yung Paget's disease medyo symmetrical, right and left, right? Okay. What diagnostic? No, I'm not going to teach you your cephalometric analysis, but let's mention of our cephalometric radiograph. No? So this is a good tool to study our growth and development. No? Okay, if you want to see the relationship of the maxilla to the mandible, the relationship of your maxilla to the cranial base, and the relationship of the mandible to the cranial base, right? So you never write on the radiograph. Instead, you get your tracing paper and you trace the important anatomical landmarks, and then you plot the points to points. You have your plane to plane, you have your angle, and then you measure and you analyze, right? Okay, so with this one class, you will now know if the patient is a skeletal class 1, class 2, and a class 3. Because orthodontically, it's not always a case of dental in origin. You can have a good dentition, but the skeletal is the problem, right? Okay, so hindi na natin i-discuss yung inyong class 1, class 2, and class 3. If we're going to review our angles classification, classification of occlusion, right? So we use the first molar, permanent first molar as a basis. So if you have the mesiobuccal cusp of the upper 6 coinciding with the mesiobuccal groove of the lower 6, and that will give us a class 1 molar relationship, diba? So the mesiobuccal cusp of the upper 6, okay, coincides with the mesiobuccal groove of the lower 6. And that is the ideal occlusion, right? But if the mesiobuccal cusp of the upper 6 is more anteriorly located than the mesiobuccal groove of the lower 6, then it becomes a class 2. So kung mas forward yung upper nyo, and the lower 6 is more posteriorly located, and that will give us a class 2 molar relationship. It's not all the time na pagka class 2 dental, class 2 din si skeletal. Hindi. That's why you do your separate analysis, because you can have a skeletal class 1 and a dental class 2, right? So if you're going to take a look at the anterior segment, there's also changes, no? And we call it as the overbite and the overjet. Okay, overbite is the horizontal parameter of occlusion. So how do we measure the overbite? So you measure the tip of the lower incisor and the tip of the upper incisor, and the difference or the measurement will be the overbite. While the overjet is the labial portion of the lower 6 versus the lingual portion of the lower incisor, and the upper incisor, and the horizontal measurement is the overjet. So this is the overjet. And this is your over bite. Correct? Okay, what's the normal measurements? Around 1 to 2 millimeters, right? So if you have more than the over bite, more than, then we call it as the bite, right? If you have a 0 over bite and a 0 over jet, what do you think is the occlusion of the patient? 0 over bite and the 0 over jet, then it means that the patient is in the edge-to-edge occlusion. Wala eh, diba? If you have a negative overbite, ano kaya yon? Then the patient would have an open bite. Diba? And usually the complaint of the patient with an open bite is what? Doc, hindi ako makakain ng pansit. Hindi ako makakain ng noodles. Hindi ko mabuksan yung candy wrappers because there is no contact on the anteriors because of the negative overbite. Okay, what about if you have a negative overjet? The upper incisor should be overlapping, diba? Labially the lower. But if it's the other way around, the lower incisors is more anterior, more labial than the upper incisors, and you will have a negative measurement. And that is your anterior cross bite. Okay, so don't get confused with the terminologies. Okay, and when you do your cast analysis, usually you use your cast, no, to measure these things, right? Okay, so going back to our angles classification, so if you have the mesiobuccal clasp of the upper six, and this time it is more posterior to the lower six, and that is our class 3 occlusion. Okay, so if you can see, it's not all the time class that a class 3 would give us an anterior crossbite. This is your anterior crossbite, wherein the lower incisors are more labial to the upper incisor. It's not all the time. You can still have a normal overbite. You can have an edge to edge, and the severe ones are with the anterior crossbite. Okay, class. So your angle classification is best, no? Seen, in photos as well as when you do your cast analysis. Okay, let's go to other structure. And this time it's the buccal mucosa. So when we do our examination, then we always check the buccal mucosa bilaterally. So a Fordyce's granules, Fordyce's disease, or Fordyce's spots, no, other names, okay, is a accumulation of your sebaceous glands. Okay, sebaceous glands are normal structure of the skin. It's a skin part of the skin, right? And the function of the sebaceous glands is what? To produce oil, sebum. Diba? But it is not normal to be seen in the mucosal area. Pero during development, some of the sebaceous glands were displaced intraorally. And this will appear as yellow spots. Yellow ang appearance niyan, class. Okay? Usually found bilaterally on the buccal mucosa. Ayan. And this is common, class, pag nakakita kayo niyan. Okay? And it may even extend to the labial mucosa, right? Then the retromolar area, the tongue, the gingiva, the frenum, and the palate. Here, they are non-functioning class. They will not produce sebum intraorally, but they are just there, no, trapped in the mucosal layer. Okay, how about on the lips? Right, so the lips should be smooth, right? But sometimes there are pitting, fistula, no? So congenital lip and commissural pits and fistulas are malformation of the lips, often following a hereditary pattern and usually associated also with oral clefts. So kung may clefts si patient sometimes, no, the patient may also give us pits on the lips. It is unilateral or bilateral depression or pit occurring on the vermilion surface of either the lip and usually on the corner of the mouth. And they are not secreting, right? But there are times there are mucus secretion from the base of the pit. So meron kayong pit and fistula, commissural, pit and fistula. Okay, double lip doesn't mean that the patient has two upper lips or two lower lips, but these are just excessive soft tissue that mimics another lip. No? So this is characterized by a fold of excess tissue on the inner lining of the lip, usually of the upper lip, okay, not so much of the lower lip. So it may be congenital, right? Or sometimes as a result of trauma or surgery. Nagkakaroon ng scar tissue formation that will give us an illusion of having two lips. So if the patient smiles, ayun, then there is a show of the excess tissue. Usually it is seen, when the patient smiles, pero at rest, nakatago lang yan. Right? So the problem is just aesthetics, nothing else. No? Okay, let's go to frenum. Frenum attachment, sometimes you ignore it, but it is also significant, no, in our dental procedures. Okay, so what are frenal attachments? So these are thin folds of mucous membrane with enclosed muscle fibers that attach the lips to the oral alveolar mucosa and the underlying periostrum. So the purpose of our frenum is to provide stability to the upper and lower lip as well as the tongue. Para may restriction pa rin ang movement ng ating lips as well as the tongue because it is attached, no, to the alveolar mucosa. Okay. And these are the appearance of abnormal frenal attachment. So if you have an abnormally enlarged maxillary labial frenum, then it can result to another problem, which is your midline diastema. So it's not only the frenum that is abnormal, that is the problem, but it can cause another problem, which is your midline diastema. What about for the lower labial frenum? Yeah. So if you have a short labial frenum, the lower, it will not cause diastema, but there is a downward pull to the gingiva, and that will increase the risk of periodontal diseases. Huh? Okay, what about if the lingual frenum, the one that attaches the tongue, no, to the floor of the mouth, is abnormal? So if it's short, right, and it causes restriction in the movement of the tongue, then it can result into speech pathology. Bulol si patient, hindi makasalita ng maayos. Diba? Nasasanay na lang yung patient because of this abnormality. Okay, let us classify our frenal attachment. No? So if the frenum is attached to the mucogingival junction, so if this is the mucogingival junction, hanggang dun lang siya. And this is considered to be the normal attachment, mucosal frenal attachment. So we name it based on the level it is located. So if it's attached to the mucogingival junction, then we call it as the mucosal frenal attachment. Are you still good? Kikinig pa? Okay. So, medyo sometimes bumababa siya, no? So if it's now attached to the attached gingiva beyond the mucogingival junction, then it's now called gingival frenal attachment. Huh? So ano yung kanina? Number 1, you have your mucosal frenal attachment. You have number 2, you have gingival frenal attachment. When fibers are inserted within the attached gingiva, as it goes more cervically, then higher chance of causing midline diastema. Okay, the next one, class, is if it is already on the interdental papilla, right? Then we call it now as papillary frenal attachment. When fibers are extending into the interdental papilla. Right? And sometimes it goes beyond it pa. It attaches to the incisive papilla. There, the incisive papilla. So we call it now as the papilla penetrating frenal attachment. If you can see, ang laki na nung diastema ni patient because of this soft tissue in between. No? So when the frenal fibers cross the alveolar process and extend up to the palatine papilla or the incisive papilla. Okay, there are sometimes structures, no, in the frenal attachment. You can have the nodule, okay, or you can have the appendix. Nodule is around. Appendix is somehow flat. Yun. Meron kayo niya minsan. Observe ko yan when you do your anesthesia. So some of you shows this one, no? Okay, if you have a double with nicum, you have frenal attachment that are close to each other, right? Usually prosto ang problem nito. You know that if the patient has excessive amount of frenal attachments, and if they are close together, and if you're going to place your dentures, then it can affect the retention of it. No? It can cause displacement. Kaya class, if you will observe when you go next semester, no, to your removables, you relieve your denture. So what do you mean? Yung denture dapat merong relief dyan. Ang denture hindi pwedeng flat. Hindi pwedeng flat yung denture. Kasi when the lip moves, then it will displace the denture. Okay? Kaya dapat nire-relieve yan. So if there are too many reliefs naman, then that can also affect the retention of the denture. Kaya surgically, pwedeng magbawas. Diba? Okay. So you can have the bifid labial frenum. And lastly, you can have a wider frenum. Ayan. And this is the one that causes your periodontal disease. That can cause periodontal disease. So you can see the gingival recession, right? And the exposure of the root, making the area prone to periodontal diseases. Okay, so when can we consider that the frenal attachment is abnormal, right? Number 1, if it appears excessively wide, or if the attachment is close to the gingival margin. Diba? Sabi natin, we want it in the mucosal layer only, but if it goes more cervically or more gingival, then pwedeng considered as abnormal. Okay, if there is lack of apparent zone of attached gingiva along the midline, and if you do your blanching test, how do you do the blanching test? You hold the lip, and then you retract it, you pull it, and if it blanches, then that means it is abnormal. It means it is causing restriction in the movement of the lip. Dapat hindi siya mag-blanch, no? Okay, so stretching of the upper lip will cause ischemia or blanching, no, of the interdental as well as the palatal tissues, meaning you have a restriction in the movement because of that attachment. So what do? We can remove it, diba? And removal of it, okay, are of different indications. Number one, if it restricts lip movement nga, through your blanching test, no, it gives positive result, then you can remove it. Number two, if the concern of the patient is the midline diastema, before you close the midline diastema, then you remove the cause of it, no, which is your enlarged labial frenum. Number three, if it compromises your prosthesis, as what we have mentioned, and daming frenum ni pasyente, kaka-relieve mo ng denture, nahuhulog na siyang kusa, diba? So magbawas ka. Number four, if it causes nipple pain on the mother. Bakit? If the baby is born with a short lingual frenum, diba? And during sucking, during feeding, ang hirap, no? Because of a restricted movement of the tongue, hindi maka-feed si baby, causes malnutrition or even pain on the mother because of forceful, no, sucking, especially breastfeeding, diba? Then have it removed as early as babies, right? And if it's causing speech problems, patient would be complaining of being tired from speaking all day, you know, because again of effort to speak clearly, kasi nga bulol, diba? So have it removed. And lastly, if it's causing gingival recession, so to avoid further progression of the periodontal disease, and manage it and do your root exposure coverage. Clear? But the question is, okay, so what procedure? So if you're going to remove your frenum, what do we call it? Ectomy. And this time we call it as frenectomy, diba? Frenectomy is the total removal of the frenum. While if you're just going to lengthen it, as you have a short frenal attachment, and if you just want to lengthen it, reposition it, then we call it as frenotomy. So that's different. Frenectomy is you remove. Frenotomy is you want to lengthen or relocate your frenum, right? So, yeah. But the question is, when do you perform your surgery? Diba? So timing of treatment depends on the indications for removal. Walang pinipili yan, di ba? Hindi po pwedeng sabihin doon sa baby, hindi makakain. Hintayin mo muna natin maging teenager ha, para mas manageable siya. Hindi, di ba? So as early as infants, if the problem is feeding because of short lingual freedom, then do it. But if you're talking of midline diastema, orthodontically, di ba? Then the timing is, when do you remove it? Do you close the space first, the diastema first, or do you remove and then close? Diba? So it depends on the ortho treatment when it's the best time to remove it. Diba? So the removal of your, you can do your initial diastema closure. Close mo daw muna. Then before you remove the frenum. Diba? Remove the frenum before the end of active orthodontic treatment. But class, you make sure that all anteriors up to the canine are erupted already before you do your surgery. Bakit? Kasi yung diastema is normal when you have your central incisors eruption first. Diba? So that is normal. When the lateral incisor erupt, then it will have a push, no, to the midline. And the final closure class is the eruption of the canine. Baka mamaya mag-close on its own, di ba? After the eruption of the canine, nag-surgery ka kaagad. You wait. Yan. Or sometimes, no, yan, frenectomy should be delayed until after alignment. So sabi nung isa, close mo muna, and then let's do the frenectomy. Bakit? What's the reason behind it? Because sometimes when you do your surgery, nagkakaroon ng scar tissue formation that makes the closure more difficult kasi mas matigas, fibrotic ang scar compared to a normal frenum. Even if it's enlarged class, malambot pa rin yan. But if there would be production of scar from the surgery and you're still not close the space yet, then it makes the space closure more difficult. Pero, yan, if it's really on the way, nandun siya talaga sa gitna, and it's preventing movement of the teeth orthodontically, wala talagang nangyayari, and that's the time you remove it, and then followed by the closure. Okay? So for those who want to go into ortho in the future, you can combine your treatment with surgery, no? With its case. Okay, so let's take a look at one case, no, on how to perform the frenectomy. So this is a case of your total removal. Yeah. Simple excision of this enlarged labial frenum. Okay, anesthesia-wise, it is advisable for you to do your anesthesia far from the area of your surgery. Bakit? If you do your soft tissue surgery, there is a possibility that it will distort kasi pupunta yung ating solution do sa soft tissue and will get confused on the anatomy of the surgical site. Baka lumobo yan. Hindi mo na makita which is which. Diba? So, depending on the size of the frenum class, you can do a 1 hemostat or a 2 hemostat surgery. Ito malaki. So you get your curved hemostat. Kaya ang daming gamit ng hemostat class. And you look for the base. No? Yung base lang. Baka mamaya masobrahan nyo yung ipit nyo, labial mucosa na pala. Right? So you get the base and the base here and the base here. Right? Okay. And this will also serve as an area for you to where to place your incision. What do you think, class? You write on the chat box. Where are you going to incise? Inside, number 1, inside the frenum. Just give me the number. Are you going to cut here inside the hemostat, number 1? Or are you going to cut outside the hemostat, number 2? Now, try to imagine the case and get your blade number 15 and imagine where are you going to do your incision. Number 1, are you following the inside of your frenum? Or are you going to cut outside the hemostat? Okay, so you have different answers. No, that's good kasi it's not all the time we agree with each other. Okay, who else? So there's number 2, there is number 1. Meron pang sagot? Ang rule lang dyan, class. Nakasagot na yung lahat? Meron konti pa lang. Meron pang gustong humabol? Meron pa, number 3, refer. Meron pang option. Number 3, refer. I will not do it, but I will refer. Okay, ang rule lang dyan, class, is anything na inipit mo, you grasp. you remove it. Bakit? So when you crush or when you grip the area, the soft tissue, it will compromise the blood supply. So if you leave it, then you will be leaving a tissue that is prone to necrosis. Mamamatay. So saan ka magka-cut? 1 or 2? Sa number 2. Yes, para kasama yung inipit mong tissue. Correct? Kasi if you cut inside, then when you open the hemostat, when you release the tissue na from the hemostat, that area where it grasps, it will become necrosed. No? Kasi naipit na siya. Okay? And so that will serve as a guide class. You cut close to the hemostat. On the base, lower base, and the upper base until they meet in the center. So literally, when you remove this one, you are holding the frenum with the hemostat. Okay? Siyempre, you will have your muscle na nga yan eh. So you get your scissors. What's the purpose of this one? So you dissect your labial mucosa from the underlying muscle so that you can pull it together with the opposite side. Para ma-pull mo yan and meet in the center. Right? Or else, bubo pa yan. Diba? So you will just stretch the outer layer mucosa. That's why it has to be separated from the underlying muscle. Okay? So this is a very good case, and you can actually have this one as your special case in your clinic for. Papasa to as a surgical requirement in clinic. Okay? So from there to there, minsan may scarring ha, kaya expect for scar tissue. And you can now proceed with your orthodontic movement. Okay? Okay. And lastly, let's go to tongue. Aglossia would mean absence of tongue at birth. Aglossia. Microglossia means you have a small tongue, but sometimes it's just an illusion of having a small tongue because of a short lingual frenal attachment. Diba? Okay, the opposite of this one is macroglossia. Okay, enlarged tongue. It may be congenital. The baby is really born with the overdeveloped muscle, tongue muscle. Or it may be acquired as a result of tumors. Pero ang tumor formation would result into macroglossia. Hypothyroidism can also have a manifestation of macroglossia. Okay, with enlarged tongue, it may cause displacement of the teeth and crenation of the lateral surface of the tongue. Class, hindi ito nakakagat ha. These are the imprints or the impression of the lingual surface of the teeth, and this is what we call as crenated tongue. Not all enlarged tongue would have this crenation, huh? But if you happen to see this scalloping on the lateral border of the tongue, then we call it now as crenated tongue. Okay, ankyloglossia. So the problem here is your short lingual frenum, and producing our ankyloglossia. So there is a fusion between the tongue and the floor of the mouth, causing restricted tongue movement and speech difficulties. So the patient has difficulty of, or probably inability to touch the palate, diba? And when we syllabicate, merong la la la, diba? La. The tongue should be touching the palate so that you can pronounce your sounds. La. Eh kung walang contact with the palate, bulol si patient, speech difficulty, right? So that is also an indication to do your frenectomy. Okay, fissured tongue. So if you inspect assess the dorsum surface of the tongue. And if you see a lot of fissures, no, deep fissures, furrows, and when you spread it out, class, yan, mas malalim pa yan. And this is an area prone to food debris and fungal infection. What fungal infection? Candidiasis. So if the patient is not very good in oral hygiene, and if you see the tongue is very white, no, from food debris, then that makes it prone to candidiasis. Okay, any questions? Okay, red patch on the tongue. But where is the red patch? No? So we call this as the median rhomboid glossitis. We've mentioned it last time. No? Median rhomboid glossitis is used to be believed as a developmental anomaly because during tongue development, then there is a fusion or a failure of the tuberculum impart to go down, to retract before the closure of the two lateral swelling of the tongue. Naipit daw yun, yung structure na yun. Okay, leaving us with a red patch. And very specifically, the location is in the midline, anterior to the circumvallate papilla. Your circumvallate papilla is in a V form like this one, dividing the tongue to anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3. So where is the placement of this red patch? In the center. And that is your median rhomboid, because of the shape, glossitis. But nowadays, class, they have been associating it with a form of fungal infection. Right? And this will be mentioned again next week when we discuss infection. Median rhomboid glossitis. Okay, another one is the benign migratory glossitis, or also known as geographic tongue, or even known as wandering rash. Okay, so this is also a red patch. Bakit red patch? Because there's also the absence of the filiform papilla, just like the median rhomboid glossitis. But this one can occur anywhere on the dorsum surface of the tongue. Kaya siya wandering kahit saan. Bakit siya geographic? Because it looks like a map. Geographic. Right? But what is unique about this class is there is a white keratotic border surrounding the red patch. Ayan, meron siyang red and white border. Okay, and they have associated the appearance of this when the immune system becomes low. Right? So, kunyari, magkaka-sipon si patient, or the patient is under a lot of stress, then pwedeng lumabas yan. So it's an on and off thing, right? And you can ask for the history of this from the patient, that they can relate it to an incidence of stress or nagkasakit, nag-appear and it will disappear. And then you can have a clinical impression that that is a benign migratory glossitis. Clear? And the last one, class, is the hairy tongue. It can be of different colors. You can call it as the white hairy tongue. If it's color white, you can have a brown hairy tongue, or you can call it as the black hairy tongue. Okay, what makes it hairy? It's not hair, but there is an elongation of the filiform papilla that looks like hair, right? So this is characterized by hypertrophy or elongation of the filiform papillae, and the color may vary depending on the extrinsic factors. It may have a gagging, choking, or tickling sensation on the palate depending on the length of the filiform papilla. Okay, what causes this? Yeah. So exciting factors would be your Candida albicans, and the systemic factors, it may be associated with patients with anemia, gastric ulcers, and the one that can initiate the appearance of this is when the patient is taking systemic antibiotics for a long time, corticosteroids, oxygenating mouth rinses, smokers, and patients receiving radiation therapy. Okay. Any questions, class? Okay, so let us summarize the discussion. So we discussed the different anomalies, developmental, or sometimes it can go to acquired anomalies of the jaws, anaphia, micronaphia, macronaphia. You have it on the skeletally also, as well as dental, using our Angles classification. We discussed our buccal mucosa. The appearance of your yellow spots would give us a suggestion that it is a Fordyce's granules. Your lips, it can have your pits, or you can also have your cleft lip, as what we have mentioned also. And a double lip, as well as the tongue. Renal attachments, and then we have the anomalies on the tongue. Any questions?
Any questions, class?
Any questions, class?
So this one will be included in the exam, the final exam. Okay, so we meet 3 and 4 on Friday. So you'll have your quiz on red and white lesions.